Stellar Life, mission log number 255.
We would see the greatness in somebody else, and then we would go to comparison. Oh, well, I will never be that, or I wish I could be that great, but I couldn't because I'm pathetic, or whatever. And we go into this comparison as in one's right and one's wrong. As soon as we go into judgment, we've gone into destruction of us. And what I'd like to see is where people come out of that and actually start looking at what is, for what it is, not for its right, not for its wrong, because that's what we're doing to feed the destruction of our futures.
Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Get inspired and live out loud. From love, freedom, and success to having it all. Here's your host, coach, speaker, and shining star, Orion.
Roger, you're looking good.
Hi and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. This is your host, Orion. My next guest is wonderful, kind, smart, wise, and so fun to listen to. And man, he's got the best style ever. He will teach you how to show up in the world in your true colors. And he's a wonderful example of that. He started as a struggling single dad and became a global speaker. Brendon Watt facilitates workshops all over the world, empowering others to know that anything is possible and that they are only one choice away from change. As well as being a speaker, entrepreneur, and business and life mentor, Brendon is lead facilitator with Access Consciousness, facilitating classes and workshops worldwide, encouraging others to step out of judgment and into a more authentic, fulfilling life. He is also the co-author of the best-selling book, Relationship, Are You Sure You Want One? And now, without further ado, on to the show.
2, 1, 0.
Hey, Brendon, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Before we begin, can you share a little bit about your passion and your mission in life and how you found it?
Oh, yeah. Well, growing up, I always knew I was different, and I knew that there had to be more than what people were talking about. You know, people were talking about, well, you get a job and you get a relationship and you have kids and you settle down and then you pay tax and then, basically would just give me this thing. And I thought, yeah, but what else? What else is beyond that? So I did all that. I did basically the life that I'd been given, the identity to live by. And I did all that. And as the years went on, I just lost me. I was so unhappy 11 years ago. And I found Access Consciousness. And that's when my life really started to turn around. I started realizing that, there is a whole lot more. There's a whole lot more to this world, but there's also a whole lot more to me. And I've been exploring that since. And it's been a journey. It's definitely not been a comfortable one, but I've got to find out things about myself that it's not just the good things, or there's also these other things that we hide from ourselves. And I'm so honored that I get to facilitate other people in that. That would definitely be one of my greatest joys, is to facilitate a class and see somebody walk in on day one as this person that they think they are, while also hating themselves for that person, and watching them, and 3 days later walk out and just go, you know what, I have so much of a sense of me. That to me is just the greatest gift.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
What do you think about your childhood made you want to fit in?
I remember when I was 6 and I just started school. I guess when I started getting around kids like that, I didn't have any friends. And I realized I was really different. I just saw the world different. And I realized one day I just didn't have any friends. Nobody would come and hang out with me or play with me or anything. And I realized that in order to have friends and to fit in, I needed to be somebody normal, be somebody else. And I basically started creating the image of me from then on.
Yeah, I can relate. I had a very interesting childhood myself. At 15, I became this rebel and adopted this rock star personality and a hippie personality, and it served me and it was cool. And then I always did things my way. I had just a few $100s. I went to Japan for 3 weeks, ended up staying there for 3.5 years. And when I was in Japan, I adopted the Japanese culture of more of a Harajuku style, where you just wear whatever you like, lots of like interesting things. I wasn't completely Harajuku, but I was very trendy Japanese style, where it's crazy fashion and it's colors and it's out there and it's really fun. And then I came to the US and I studied acting, and I wanted to fit in because my accent was really heavy. I could not speak English well, and even the reading was very difficult. So that was already an obstacle. I'm different.
Where are you from?
Israel.
Oh, nice.
Very different. I speak different and I look different. I have all this like really like fun belts and fun this and I wanted to fit in. So it was like my experience being there was very uncomfortable because it was very cliquey. It was very like being in high school. That I've never experienced something like that in high school, but there were like the popular kids and the non-popular kids. And I was not a popular kid, and I really wanted to fit in. And I started losing all the colorful attire and starting wearing like just black and gray and down and just t-shirts and just putting everything that was a part of me aside in order to fit in. And it never works. It never works.
And that's the big thing, is it never works. And this is why it's like with the world the way it is now, there's so many people that are unhappy because there's so many people that think that that's the way to having them is like, let me fit in. And I know for me too, and I'm not sure if it was the same for you, but it's like you don't cognitively see another option. It's either be an outsider or fit in is basically your two-choice universe. And like you said, all of the beautiful things about you get put aside so that you can create yourself as this personality. You basically create the box of your reality as the same as everybody else's. And then you wonder why you're miserable. It's like because you've lost the essence of who you are.
Mm-hmm. And I tried so much to dim my light that I forgot how to ignite it again. And it was a journey to find it and to find a self-expression as me.
Yeah. And yeah, it definitely is a journey. And like you said, it's like we dim our light, but we don't lose it, which is the thing that gets me excited because it's like you've basically put the fire out, but there is still a flame. Anything that we have been, anything that we are, anything that's true for us, we still are. We just cover it up really well with all of the other things that we are not, that we choose instead. That's what I love is seeing with people, okay, so how do we bring the you out again?
Yeah.
Where did you go? I know you're in there hiding somewhere. How do we expose you to you again?
So how do you do that? Yes.
From question to begin with and looking at your life and going, okay, is this truly the life that I desired to create? And is this what's bringing me joy? And for me, it wasn't. 11 years ago when I found Access Consciousness, I was basically at a point where I'd lost hope.
What does losing hope look like to you?
Basically, total unhappiness, not seeing possibilities at all, like being in a hole that you can't seem to find the way out of. And I was just like, there's no way out of this hole. I think I might as well just cover myself in it and just leave the world behind. But as soon as I started realizing that the question was the beginning, like, okay, so what is true for me? Even starting with that, and what would I like to create my life as? As soon as I started going from answer, which nothing ever works out, I'm hopeless, I'm pathetic, I'm no good, nobody likes, all of these different things that run through our heads and basically create our lives and keep them recurring the way that they do, to I wonder what else is possible. And even in that question, it just doorways started opening for me. Like I came from nothing. I didn't have money. I grew up poor. I grew up with a lot of abuse. I grew up with all of these different things that would validate that. which a lot of people do as well. And I get that.
Yeah, I can relate. I come from a similar upbringing.
Yeah. And so what I was doing was, that was my story. I am this because of this. So it was this reaction to the past that I was creating my future as. So I was doing victim, basically, going, well, because I had abuse and because I had all of these different things growing up, and, you know, I was bullied a lot and all these just countless things, I now have a reason and justification for why my life sucks. So now I have a story. So now I don't have to change, basically. When I realized, it was one of my first seminars that I took with Access Consciousness.
How did you find them, by the way?
Well, I actually found, like I say, gotten to the point in my life where I was so unhappy. And I remember I just left a long relationship to a girl that I had a child with. So we had him 1 week on, 1 week off at the time. And he was 4 at the time. And I was sharing this tiny little bedroom with him at my mother's house, waking up every morning miserable. And this kid would wake up next to me and go, Dad, what are we doing today? Like, you know, and he'd just be this ball of joy. And I couldn't even receive that.
Oh.
And it's interesting to look back on it now, but I made a demand one day. I just went, you know what? This needs to change. My life needs to change now. I've had enough of this. I don't want to live like this anymore. And it was just a demand in myself. And the next day, I was reading the newspaper, and I found this tiny little thing in there that said, all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. Call Mel. And it had a phone number. That was it. Tiny little 2-line ad in this paper. And so I called this girl, and she said, you know, I was like, okay, so what do you do? And she said, well, I do something called the Access Bars. And she said, at worst, it'll be like you've had a great massage, and at best, your whole life will change. And my whole life quite literally did that day.
What kind of a massage is that?
It's a hands-on body process, and it's 32 points on the head.
Ooh.
It's still to this day, it's my favorite thing in the whole wide world. But when lightly touched, it dissipates all of basically it's like clearing the crap out of your life.
Nice.
So if anyone wants to find it, you can find it at accessconsciousness.com.
Is it only in Australia or is it global?
No, I'm in the US right now. I live in the US.
Oh, are you? Oh, where do you live?
Yeah. I live in Houston, Texas.
Cool. I'm in Florida right now.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. I was in Florida a month ago or something.
Come visit us.
Okay, good. I will. But Access Consciousness now is in 176 countries around the world. It is everywhere. It's massive.
Wow.
And it's just, we've got thousands of certified facilitators. We've got tens of thousands of bars facilitators, but just so many different things. And this was the beginning for me. As soon as I found this, it was like, it's not like, oh my God, now my life is just amazing. It changed the energy. It's almost like you said, it was like, it's like my tiny little flame of a fire that I had left called me got some fuel added to it.
Nice.
And basically, I've been on the journey of finding more of that since.
Wow. I like what you said about being in the journey, because it just seems like we have infinite potential and we are ever expanding, and we keep learning about our abilities and everything that we can do and manifest in this world. It's never ending.
Exactly. It is never ending. And possibilities are infinite. We have the capacity to create and receive and be in ways that not many people talk about. But it's like my life has changed so much with the more that I've been willing to be me, because the more I've been willing to be that and start showing up as me, the more I actually start receiving. And it's like we have a whole universe that desires to contribute to us, but most of us have we've been taught such rigid ways of how to live. Mm-hmm. This equals this. And if you do that, then you get this. And we basically spend our lives trying to be right, trying to get this world right, this reality right, rather than exploring what else is actually possible and what's beyond it.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we're in that state, there is a lot of goodness and manifestation that can come into our lives. But when we are in the victim mentality, it just blocks everything. And I know I had that victim mentality more than once in my life. And every once in a while I find myself, doing that. Oh, poor me. Why did that happen to me? And then because of the work that I did on myself, I can catch myself and I can turn it around and see the gift in it and move forward or not stay in it for too long. And I also know a lot of people that describe other people as having victim mentality, but themselves, they live in that victim mentality and everything is done to them. So how can one recognize that he or she are in the victim mentality? And then what can they do to break through?
The victim mentality is, I guess, it's anywhere that you're trying to validate why you are who you are. I'm unhappy because, or I have no money because, and start recognizing if you get that everything in life is choice, that we actually choose to be victims. We're not just made them, and we're not just, and I get it with all the abuse and stuff like that. And that's why I enjoy speaking about it, is because I didn't come from a rosy background. And I get when people go into, yeah, but you don't get it, I was abused and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, I actually do get it. I do get it. But one of the things that set me free of it was recognizing that I still have choice. And that's really the big thing that a lot of us have given up, is we've gone from infinite choice and we've basically compressed it into a menu of what's right and wrong, which is the thing that gets us stuck. When I first realized, it was in one of my seminars early on, that everything that was showing up in my life was because of every single choice that I've ever made. And when I heard that, I went, wow. So if I'm this unhappy, and if I think I'm this much of a just piece of crap, then from all the choices I've made, then I wonder what it would be like if I started making different choices. And that's, my life really started turning around, because I realized that I was the creator of it. I'd created everything in my life based on the choices that I was making. And it takes you out of reaction and into action.
Being proactive.
Being proactive with recognizing that there's always something else possible, always. And I would see myself as a good example of this, because I've had situations in my life where I've thought, oh my God, I've just completely destroyed something. But also with knowing this, what else is possible? I wonder what else is possible beyond this. Then it gets me into that proactive state of recognizing that the choices that we make are what creates our lives, and not only our present, but our futures.
What were the different choices that you made?
One of them was I started recognizing that I was choosing unhappiness.
Taking responsibility.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Taking action.
Owning who you are and where you are.
Yeah, definitely. And that takes a lot of vulnerability and a lot of courage to actually go, you know what, I hate my life right now, but I've chosen it. So as long as I know I've chosen it, I'm going to start choosing something different. And I recognized that I was choosing unhappiness. I was choosing no money. I was choosing to share that bedroom at my mother's house with my 4-year-old son. I was choosing to be miserable. When I recognized I was choosing it, I went, you know what, I'm going to start choosing something different. And that was with every choice that I started making. Because the other thing that we do with choice is we think that once we've chosen, we're now bound by that choice. But we're not. We just keep choosing it as our way to try and get what we've chosen right, so that we can justify why we've chosen it. When I realized that each choice we have is good for 10 seconds, you can make another one 10 seconds later, I was like, okay, cool. So I'd still choose unhappiness. I'd recognize in that moment that I was choosing it and go, okay, so what if I made another choice? And what if I just went, okay, so for the next 10 seconds, I'm going to choose happiness, and started getting really present with every single thing that was showing up in my life and recognizing that I had a different choice.
What if you are near someone that really triggers you? In my case, my mom.
Oh, yeah.
I want to make the choice to be the great Mother Teresa daughter, but boy, man, she knows how to dance all over my buttons over and over and over again. And I love her. She's a wonderful woman, and I get triggered. How can I make different choices when I'm around her? The emotions they interfere with the logical level. Okay, now I'm going to make a choice not to try to scream.
Yeah. One of the things is, in order to be something for somebody else, what a lot of us do is rather than just go, okay, this person needs to see me as this is the image that they want to see me as, most of us become it. Okay, my mum wants to see me as the Mother Teresa, whatever that is, that image of the perfect child or just the saint, the angel. Oh my goodness, my daughter is the best thing, whatever that is. But what we'll do is we'll try and become that image rather than act it. And then in that becoming it, that's when we have to give up all these parts and pieces of us. And that is one of the biggest triggers. When we give up on us, when we give up on the elements of being, what being us is and what being true to us is, that's when we get triggered so easily because we've lost our ability to have allowance for others also. And then we start taking everything personal. Someone will say something and you're just like, oh my God, and everything becomes this personal attack.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the way out of it is allowance. Okay. So, and getting to that is allowance is everything is just an interesting point of view. Everything and everybody is what they are because they're choosing to be it. So it's allowing everything what it is and not having a projection or an expectation that it should be something different. And when you have that, you get to be all of you in the presence of anything, and you don't have to eliminate any part of it because you have that allowance for you also. So in getting into that, because you're like, oh my God, that sounds amazing, but how the hell do I get there?
That was my next question. Thank you so much for reading my mind. I was like, wow, that sounds amazing on paper.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, yeah, that sounds cool, but tell me how to get there. So allowance is that space of allowing everything to be what it is, where everything is just an interesting point of view. So anywhere that you've got a fixed point of view, these are the things that stick us. So you want to get to, and say it in your head, interesting point of view, I have the point of view that my mother needs me to be this. Interesting point of view, I have the point of view that I need to give myself up for my mother. Interesting point of view, I have, and you keep going with all of those fixed points of view that keep showing up for you, and they start dissipating. And beyond that, you start seeing, oh, wait a minute, I still have choice. I had this experience once where in my previous relationship that I was in, we had to go out to lunch with her mother. And her mother, let's just say, not a nice woman, okay? Not somebody that I would really like to spend too much time with, just unkind. We had to go out to lunch and I really didn't want to do it. So I'd made it it's a necessity. I just have to go. And I didn't realize at the time that I was choosing it. And I was so frustrated. I was like, why do I have to do this? Like, in no allowance at all. I had a fixed point of view that I was being made to do it. And I was like, what is this? And I recognized, I went, oh, I've given up choice. So I went, okay, so what would it be like if I actually went, you know what, I'm choosing to go to lunch. I might not want to, but I'm also willing to choose it because it's going to create more for everyone. I knew that it was going to make my partner at the time, her life easier. It was going to create more for everybody. And I went, you know what, I'm going to do it from a different energy. I'm going to do it from the space of choice. As soon as I made that different choice and got to that allowance of the situation, the whole thing changed. Because it's our energy that we are. We're all energetic beings. And it's like when you shrink yourself in and you're just like, oh, I have to do this, and you resist and react to everything, that which you're resisting and reacting to keeps coming at you. You're like a deer in the headlights with it. Because anything that you resist keeps showing up. Like if you look at anything in your life that you're resisting and you're going, why does that keep showing up? Well, that's because you have no allowance of it.
Interesting. Because I find myself, when I, as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, wow, I have a lot of shoulds and I have to be a good daughter. I have to, make her feel comfortable. I have to make her happy. I have to do this and this and this is like, even like giving up me in order to please, in order to do what I should do. And then, like you said, it creates resentment. Like I do it by the book. I do everything I need to do. But then like inside there is I don't want to do this. I want my freedom. It's a conflict of interest. So I'm sure and then she said something and I'm triggered. Yeah, it happens. Especially because we moved to Florida and now she's living with us. So it's more intense. It's not like I visit her once a week. She's with me. So, and she doesn't speak English. So I need to take care of everything.
Okay, so with that, for example, is it's like if you looked at it and went, okay, so I've chosen this.
I have, yes. I want her. I want her here. She's wonderful. It's wonderful for my son. It's great having her here. And there is that my internal self-work that I need to do with this.
Well, yeah, and that's the allowance part. It's such a freeing thing to know that anything like that can show up in your life when you're willing to be present with it and like vulnerable with yourself, like walls down and go, you know what, this is, even though I chose this, it's pissing me off. Yeah. I'm resenting it, and we do it, we choose things in our lives and then suffer them because we don't see another choice beyond it. My question with that would be, okay, so what would make it more fun for you? Like what would make it workable for you?
Mm-hmm. Are you asking me or is it?
I'm asking as a general, but
right.
But with you and with what you brought up, because it's something that, like in you bringing that up, and thank you for bringing it up, it's something people could take your mother out, for example, and add in their child or add in their work or add in their relationship. It's basically you've given an outline for the way that people function when we don't have allowance and when we see that we have to give up us in order to live in this place of no choice.
And so what is the next step?
So we've got like that getting to allowance, but then being in question and go, okay, so I've created this the way it is. My mum lives here with us in Florida. I've got to basically take care of everything because, and look at what you've created, acknowledge it, and go, okay, I've created this. Now what else is possible beyond it? Because that's the other thing we do is we sit in the mud thinking that we'll figure out why we're in the mud. And once we figure out why we're stuck in the mud, we'll get out of the mud. But what we do is we sound familiar?
Yeah.
And I get it because it's very familiar to me too. But I've started getting smarter and recognizing that figuring it out and trying to find the why only keeps us going in circles. It's not the figuring out why we chose something or why something's not working or being frustrated with it. It's knowing that there's more beyond it and going, okay, so I get that I've created that. I acknowledge that. Okay, awesome. How cool am I? I created blah, blah, blah. Now, what else would I like to create beyond this? And what's the gift in this that I'm not acknowledging?
I see the gift in it, like in between the triggers, I'm like full of gratefulness and I see the gift in it and I tell people how to see the gift in it and all that. And still.
Okay, so the next step then is for this. Okay, because I've trust me, you're speaking to someone with experience on this one. The next thing is when you can actually see the gift in it and you can see the beauty in it, and then you still just want to kick it. You're just like, yeah, I see all the good stuff, but I still want to kick it. When you see that, is go, okay, so there's a couple of things. First of all, what do I love about this upset?
Yeah, it serves me. Of course. Yes. I can be a victim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not only victim, I can brag about how good I am for being that. I don't know. I get something out of it. Some egotistic pleasure out of it, I guess.
Can I just thank you for the vulnerability that it takes to even look at something like that?
You can thank me all day long, yes.
Well, I'm grateful because I work with a lot of people and it's like, and that right there is the biggest step is looking at what you're choosing and being honest with it, not sugarcoating it to yourself, but going, you know what? I actually love it because it gives me this victim, or it makes me normal, or it makes me look less than, so I know that other people will take care of me.
In some ways, it makes me a hero.
Yeah. What would it be like if you actually were a hero for you?
Amazing.
Yeah. So then once you have that, it's going, you know what? This is awesome. This has served me, this victim stuff. This has served me wonderfully for what it's got me basically to the point I am right now. And I'm a little tired of it. So, okay, now what next? And when you're willing to look at your life like that, then you can actually see the brilliance in it too. From this reality's idea of it, most people look at that as something, well, that's bad or that's wrong, so let me not even look at it, rather than look at it and go, okay, if I see the gift here, it's actually allowed me to be a hero. It's given me value with different things. It's been really good source for entertainment. And now I'm kind of bored. So now what else is possible and what would I like to add to my life?
Yeah. Nice.
So now you can still, because it's not about, the other thing that people do is they would have a problem, like let's say with a person or whatever.
It's not about the other person. It's never about the other person.
Never. And that's another gift with allowance is you start saying, oh, wait a minute, I'm just out of allowance here. I'm expecting this to be the way that I want it because I want it the way that I want it. So everybody should give me everything the way I want it because I want it. It means you're not in allowance, you're in expectations.
And I really like to control everything too. So it's just a beautiful combination.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're speaking to a lot of the population with that, which is great. And I'm really grateful for this conversation because the brutal honesty that you have is a gift.
It's a gift, and sometimes it's not a gift.
Well, it may not look like a gift sometimes, but it is actually a gift always, because once you see something for what it is, then you don't have to change it. You can choose something else. For a lot of us, we live our lives and we basically spend our lives doing, because we're spending them rather than living them, is we spend our lives trying to change the things that we cannot change rather than being an allowance of them.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the principle in quantum physics. As you look at the object, it can appear or disappear or change. It's the energy of you looking at it.
Yeah.
So when we look at what we really need to look at already, just by having that connection, awareness, knowledge, it will shift.
Well, it's that, but it's also the request.
Yes.
So the way that the universe works is the universe works on request, and most people are demanding of it. The universe doesn't work by, universe, give me all of this, I demand it. It never shows up. But it's, universe, I would really like to have this in my life. What would I need to be or do in order to create this? And the universe, we've lost this connection or the communion with ask and you shall receive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was written in the Bible, but nobody paid attention to it, is our willingness to ask and our willingness to request is with the allowance to it is what allows anything to change. But our fixed points of view are the things that get in the way, and they actually solidify everything in our life that will not change. If there's anything right now in your life that's not changing, you have some fixed point of view about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We have so many tools with all of these different things, because it's all about empowering people to know what they know, and also start seeing the gift that they are, and recognizing that with this thing of we are the creators of our lives, we are the inventors of all the needs, of all the problems, of all the upsets. We're the ones creating them, yet we're the ones resisting and reacting them, thinking that we're the victims to them. And the power and the potency that lives in choice, in that acknowledgement of, oh, you know what? I had a shitty day today. I recognize that I was inventing it because I wanted to have a shitty day today. Okay, good. The power in that recognition and that acknowledgement is the knowing that you can go beyond it with a different choice.
Yes. What are some of the tools that you're using in Access Consciousness?
Well, I would say a big one, the biggest of the biggest is the Access Consciousness clearing statement, which is right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine, shorts, boys, millions. And there's an extremely long explanation of that, which I'm not going to go into right now. But I also say to people, a lot of people want to, I'll give you an example of how it works in a second. But if anyone wants to know, there's this awesome video that Dr. Dane here, one of the co-founders of Access Consciousness, did. It's like 20 minutes long of him doing this. And you can find it at theclearingstatement.com. which is really cool. But basically it's about changing the energy of anything. It's about going to the point of creation of where you've created something and undoing that. And then also undoing the places where you're using that energy to create destruction, where you're destroying yourself basically with it. So with that is, so if you've got something in your life right now that you're working on, you're looking at it from all these different angles. And this is one I use a lot with something that just doesn't seem to be changing, is take it, get the energy of it though, like actually be present with it. Like if it's something, say with your family or with business, with your body, whatever it is, we've all got at least one thing that's just that sore thumb in our life, or basically our sore toe that we keep kicking all the time, and go, everything that allows this to exist I now destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine, shorts, boys, and muons. And be with it and do it again, and be with it and do it again. And the energy of it will change because you're undoing all of the limitations that you put in place that allow it to exist. So notice the things that you have in your life that seem so solid, like there's no way of changing it. Like it's basically like a brick wall in front of you. But one of the things with limitations that science even says is with a brick wall, for example, a wall in front of you, is it's not actually solid. The molecular structure that makes up that wall is moving so slowly that it appears to be solid. So when you get that, it's the same with our limitations, is they're not actually solid. They're being held together with our points of view. In undoing that, we actually change the energy and we allow everything to move again. And this is where we start opening our lives up, because whether we want to see it or not, or whether it sounds, and this to me, I mean, like I said, I was normal can be 11 years ago. When I first got that first bars session that I talked about before, where I found the ad in the paper, she said to me, this sweet girl that did this body process on me, she said, do you mind if I ask you some questions and say these crazy words to you while I'm doing this session? And I went, I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. I just help. Just help me. I'm miserable. Help me. And so she started asking me, it was an 1.5-hour session. She started asking me different questions on what was going on in my life. And she'd be like, okay, so would you like to change that? I'd be like, yes, please. Like, yeah, I really would. Like, I've had enough of being like this. And she'd be like, okay, so everything that allows that to exist. And then she would use this clearing statement. So not only was I getting the bars, but I was also changing the energy of all of these walls that I'd put up in my life, walls that I couldn't see beyond because they appeared solid to me. There were all of these limitations. And
it sounds like magic.
It is magic. It's basically your magic wand right there.
Mm-hmm.
I did not understand one single word she was saying, and I could not even remember. I couldn't even tell you a question she asked me because basically I was just...
Even now when you say the statement, I'm like, huh? He said what? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. One of the other things with the clearing statement is it's not a linear construct, but neither are our lives. If we could figure out our lives in our heads and with thinking, then wouldn't we all be more successful?
Mm-hmm.
Because we all know how to think, but it's not the thinking, it's the energetics of the energy that we're willing to be that is what's creating our lives. This one tool alone, anyone listening was willing to just be open to it and use that one tool alone with the clearing statement, your whole life would change.
Right. When you look at your life and you see that the guy that was back then, like the person that you were, and now the new version of yourself, beyond the extremely awesome wardrobe that I loved looking at your website.
I do like my clothes.
Yeah, they're really cool. What else changed? Who are you now, and how did you find your unique self?
Well, it's like we've talked about, it's a journey, and I still haven't found it. There is no destination to being you. There is no finish line. It's an ever-expanding universe, but it starts becoming, like, to be honest with you, my life has changed more in the last month than it has in the last 11 years.
Oh, do tell.
I got to a point where I'd still been creating this image. I got asked by Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here, the founders of Access Consciousness, the co-creators, 4 years ago. I was asked to facilitate this advanced class in Access Consciousness called Choice of Possibilities. Now, there's only 4 people on the planet that facilitate this class, them being 2 of them, and myself and Simone, who you did the interview with, is the other one.
She's wonderful, yes.
So I was extremely honored, but also at the same time thinking, well, how am I going to get this right? So I started creating an image of this conscious, well, this is what consciousness looks like, and this is now how I have to show up in the world. And once again, like we've talked about, is the amount of you that you have to cut off in order to maintain an image is a recipe for misery. So I'd been doing that, going, oh, well, now I have to show up as this. Now everybody thinks I'm brilliant, so now I have to act brilliant. It was all this image stuff that was getting me so stuck. And it wasn't until a few months ago that I started going, you know what? I know I came to this world to be something different. I know that. And I know for a lot of us, somewhere in there, you know it. Like if I asked you, did you come here to be something different in this world? What would you say?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I guess so. But it's like, but we all, like, we have that, but yet we're trying to be normal. We're trying to be like everybody else when it's the difference of us. That's the beauty in this world. You know, we have 8 billion people on this planet, 8 billion plus people on this planet right now, trying to be the same as everybody else rather than, what about us? What about being you? You know, so when I started recognizing that I was just basically pushing around this image of myself, I got to work. And it's been the hardest and the most uncomfortable few months of my life, but also the most rewarding, hands down, without a doubt. It's the courage and it's the willingness to go, you know what? I'd like that too. See, even if you can hear me talking about this right now and that sparks anything in you, then it really isn't figuring out how to get there. It's going, you know what? I'm having that too. Universe, consciousness, will you please help? Will you please contribute to me having more of me? And that's what I started asking. And
wow, powerful.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was saying before. We've really given up on ask and receive. We're not asking big enough. We're asking to get through week to week. We kind of make the things that we've decided are little things valueless when they're actually some of the greatest things, like joy, for example. What would it take for me to be more joyful today than I was yesterday? In allowance, what would it take for me to have more allowance? And one of the things that I'd given up, well, not given up, but I'd basically buried, was when I was a kid, I was so soft, like a marshmallow, basically. Just, you couldn't, nothing. It was just this wonderful, sweet being. And then to be normal, I'd just push that aside. That's valueless because nobody sees value in kindness and joy and vulnerability and allowance and gratitude. Nobody values that. They want to see this image. So I created that image.
One of the things that made me really want to talk to you was watching your video, and you were talking about your childhood and you were in tears. And I saw you and I was like, wow, what a sweet soul. I want to have a conversation with that person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for receiving that. And the other thing with that too is, if you see that in me, the only way that you can see that in me is if you are that also.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is the other thing that we do with judgment in this reality, and right and wrong and all of these other basically piles of dog poo that we call us, is we would see the greatness in somebody else, and then we would go to comparison. Oh, well, I will never be that, or I wish I could be that great, but I couldn't because I'm pathetic or whatever. And we go into this comparison as in one's right and one's wrong. As soon as we go into judgment, we've gone into destruction of us.
Yes.
And what I'd like to see is where people come out of that and actually start looking at what is, for what it is, not for its right, not for its wrong, because that's what we're doing to feed the destruction of our futures. So we have judgment there, which is just polarity. It's either or, right and wrong, good or bad. That's what's there. And then we have the possibilities that exist beyond it, but the possibilities don't exist in the judgment. You cannot judge yourself into possibilities, which is what a lot of people do. You know, and I've told this. I've given an example in one of my. I've used this example a lot in my classes that I facilitate, only because it is so bluntly obvious that it doesn't work like this. Is, have you ever looked in the mirror and judged yourself for having a fat ass and your ass got smaller?
No.
You know, no. Why? Because judgment doesn't work, but we keep trying. We're going, well, I'm terrible with money, so if I just judge myself more and more and more, my money situation is going to be better. No, it's stop judging yourself and go to a question of what's possible beyond this. And see, the other thing that we're doing is using money as an example for one thing is what I realized years and years ago. I just was struggling financially, and it wasn't changing. I was using any tool that I could find, and it just wasn't changing, and the energy of it wasn't changing. And one day I looked at it and asked myself, and I got really present with it. I asked myself, what do I hate about money? And I was present with that, and I asked it again, and then I got conflict, and I went, wow, where did that come from? And what I realized was I remembered that my whole time growing up, through childhood and adolescence and all of that, was whenever money was brought up as a topic or talked about at any venue at all, there was always conflict. You know, my family would fight about it. There would always be arguments about whatever with money. So I went, well, I don't like conflict, so I don't like money. I had the two of those lumped together. So I didn't want the conflict, which meant I didn't want the money. When I realized that, I went, oh, that's not even my reality. I actually really like money. It's fun. You know, it gives me different possibilities, and I like using it to contribute to other people, and I like all of these different things. But what I realized in that was it wasn't even my reality. So for a lot of us, is this thing of getting present with that is recognizing that right now, okay, is this truly me I'm being right now, or am I being someone else? Which is what a lot of us have done. I realized early on with parenting, I have a 16-year-old son now. And in the early years, it's like I would say things would come out of my mouth, and I'd sound exactly like my father. And I'd go, who am I being right now? My dad. You know what? Stuff that. I'm going to be me with this kid. And it's getting present with it. And that's the thing with unhiding you and going beyond this image, is it's being in that question of what's true for you. Would you choose if you were truly being you?
Amazing. Amazing. Oh, I can talk with you for hours, and we're out of time. I would love to have you back and have more of this or different conversations with you here.
Of course, I would love to.
So before we say goodbye for now, where can people find you, study with you, learn from you, and follow you?
They can find me at brendonwatt.com, which is, my name is spelled a little interesting, but it's BRENDONWATT.com. And also check out accessconsciousness.com. It's got, you'll see me all over it as well. I like to, and it's amazing. And if you want to change your life, I would say there is a very good place to start.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for everything you shared. Thank you for helping me. And thank you for teaching and sharing all your wisdom with our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Remember, listeners, be honest with yourself. Let your light shine. Remember, you always have a choice to have more joy, more abundance, and always do what is true for you and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time. Thank you for joining me on my mission to light people up and change lives around the world. I hope today's conversation inspires you to step up, go after the life of your dreams, and be who you want to be. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go to stellarlifepodcast.com for show notes, transcripts, and other cool stuff. And please subscribe, review, and help spread the word by sharing us on Facebook and Twitter. Have a lovely day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.